President Trump is ramping up his fight against Twitter. He is expected to sign that executive order today that will reduce legal protections for social media companies and big tech companies and the content that they post on their platforms. Also weighing in on Twitter's decision to censor the president, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg saying private companies shouldn't be the arbiter of truth.
I just believe strongly that Facebook shouldn't be the arbiter of truth of everything that people say online. I think in general, private companies probably shouldn't be, or especially these platform companies shouldn't be in the position of doing that.
All right, Newsmax White House correspondent Emerald Robinson joining us live now from Washington, D.C. And Emerald, it seems like this is a reaction to Jack's fact-checking of the president on Twitter, but the White House is telling you there's a whole lot more to this than just what Jack is doing recently, right?
That's right, John. The White House had actually planned to address the issue in a big way with a series of executive orders early in the year in order to get ahead of censorship ahead of the 2020 election. If you'll recall, in fact, Newsmax had exclusively obtained a copy of an executive order back in March that was making its way to the president's desk. That executive order was specific to search engine manipulation by companies like Google and how that had the potential to turn votes in the 2020 election. However, that executive order and the others fell casualty to the coronavirus crisis. But it really goes back further than that. Of course, John, the president has highlighted censorship throughout his entire presidency, but the White House ramped up its efforts about a year and a half ago. Last May, it introduced an online tool in order for people to report what they perceived or their stories of social media bias. And then in July of 2019, the president welcomed social media stars like Diamond Silk and Sebastian Gorka and others to the White House for a conference in which he committed to having his administration look into the issue and propose regulations. But all of that had stalled up until today, and the president and his team getting the fire lit under them, of course, with the latest development on Twitter. But the president tweeting today that today would be a big day for social media and fairness. And just to give you a little further insight into the White House's thinking, John, we're talking a lot about Twitter and Facebook, but I can tell you that they're particularly concerned about YouTube as well, because about 70% of the videos that viewers see are suggested by Google's Up Next algorithm. We know from leaked videos last year that algorithm is altered and skewed in order to promote videos that are in line with their particular political ideology.
It's an important point, Emerald, because Google, of course, is the most popular search engine. The next most popular search engine is YouTube. Even though it's video, it's still a search engine. So that's an important point. Thanks so much for that, Emerald. For more on this, let's bring in Florida Congressman Michael Waltz. Congressman Waltz, is great to have you with us today. First off, is this legal? It's not to say what Twitter is doing right, but Congress seems to have a perfectly good law on the books to handle this. Section 230 of the Federal Communications Act. So why does the president have to sign an executive order to get, what the FTC should be doing or the DOJ maybe even should be enforcing?
Well, a lot of these laws are very broad, and obviously the executive branch then puts some meat on the bones, and they're implementing regulations on how it's actually implemented. And in that particular law, there was some language that basically gave a lot of latitude to these big tech companies in terms of determining what truth is. And you heard from Zuckerberg in saying these platforms should not be the arbiter of the truth, whereas you have so many inconsistencies in the case of Twitter in particular, and then you begin looking into those inconsistencies and who they have on their board of directors and who they have in determining what's truth or what's not. In this case, they're trying to call out the president, but yet they do nothing in terms of China. In fact, one of its board of directors that Twitter just brought on from Google was heavily involved in helping the Chinese government
and that's really the thing here, isn't it, right? Because these tech companies want the protections and the freedoms of America. That's why they base their companies here. But their whole business model is dependent on capturing the Chinese audience, and they seem more willing to capitulate to what the Communist Party of China wants than what's actually right and just in these types of situations.
Well, I would just correct you in one place there. It's not just capitulating. It's actually abating. It's actually abiding and helping the Chinese government in terms of its censorship there. And one has to wonder if they think it's okay to do here. And so, if you look at Twitter's board of directors, some of its advisors, and who is the arbiter, they've actually helped build Google's projects in China. And now have come over to Twitter. They've rejected working with the Chinese military. They're helping the Chinese military, but not helping the United States military. And now they're focusing on President Trump.
It's
we
surreal.
have seen nothing in terms of focusing on President Obama or some of the others. So there's
you could mention so many tweets that have promoted and perpetuated false narratives just about the Russia investigation alone that now should be based on Jack's own model, should now be go back and fact checked. So this is an interesting topic for discussion. We know more will come of it. Congressman, great to see you as always.
All right. Thanks so much.